All right. Somebody Google that for me. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see if I'm going to turn into my telemarketer voice again when I do that. Or not telemarketer, customer service. This is why I script these things, people. And here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome to KiddWrites Convos. My name is Michael Kidd, and I can't stop writing. How was everyone's Labor Day? How many of y'all ended up having to work? I worked. When you're a writer, you just kind of got to keep working all the time. Blessing a curse. But, I mean, that's the job. But that does bring me, tangentially, to today's topic, which is influences. Mostly it does bring me there because I have ADHD, and so my brain just makes connections that don't make sense to anyone, including and especially me. But so let's go over what that connection is, just so you can see how muddled this is. So the connection is a guy who is one of the most influential writers of the modern era, Stephen King. King is interesting because he represents one of the primary dangers of influences, taking away the wrong lessons. So really early on when I was developing my skills, I learned that part of the secret to King's success is that he writes 10 pages a day. Now, that isn't so hard for me to accomplish today. I typically wind up doing that on accident some days. It really just kind of depends on how much my day gets filled up with other things. Making videos, for example. Yesterday I had to spend a great deal of the day on web design. And I'm also a parent and going to college, so, it's something. But especially when I was a novice writer, you might as well have told me the secret to success was that I had to go fight a bear. It wasn't going to happen. But that actually ties into a major problem I see with other authors trying to emulate King. You just kind of need to slow down. Stephen King releases a new book every year. He writes 10 pages a day because he's Stephen King. He has an established reputation, he has a career, and he's also a notorious workaholic and a recovering cocaine addict. It's just not realistic or healthy for aspiring authors to try and write at the same rate as King does. Businesses kind of run into the same problem too. When you write content for any business, you really need to look at competitors and see what they're doing. But if you spend too much time trying to emulate their style instead of looking at the practical business things they're doing to drive up engagement, you're not going to succeed at either of them. Again, I used ThinkGeek as an example a couple of episodes ago. ThinkGeek was making some fantastic content. Everybody tried to sound like them. Nobody successfully sounded like them. They still had their very unique voice. You just wound up with a bunch of annoying sites trying to act like incredibly boring products were exciting by using bad comedy writing. It just was awful. We all remember how tedious the internet was a couple years then. So a good content writer will be able to give you a unique, distinct style that helps you stand out from the competition. A great one will be able to implement your competitor's successful tactic. That was a weird word to stumble over. Your competitor's successful tactics into their content. But a bad one's it's going to make it feel like a knockoff. It's going to make it feel like one of those tedious wannabe ThinkGeek sites. It's just bad. But that's not to say that influences themselves are bad. They're great. Every creator has them. I have them. Your favorite creator, I promise you, has them. If you look at any movie or any book that comes out, throw a stone and you'll find an artist that inspired them. So if reading Stephen King novels makes you want to write, that is always a good thing. And if you notice that the way you write, the prose you use, the kind of stories you like to tell, feel like King stories, that's also okay. That happens a lot. That happens all the time to basically everybody. Anybody who has ever read a Lovecraft story can feel his influence on King. You can recognize a lot of the elements of Lovecraft when you read some of Stephen King's novels, and especially when you read some of the way he describes his monsters and some of the ways he doesn't describe his monsters in some cases. But you would never really refer to it or The Shining as a Lovecraft ripoff. It's very distinctly a Stephen King novel. It's not just a copy of somebody else. And that's the power influences has. You can take ideas and stories that inspire you and shape them to be uniquely yours. So, like, what do you get when you are an author in the 80s who's inspired by monsters and cosmic horror of Lovecraft, but is not as blindingly racist as Lovecraft was? You get Stephen King. And what happens when you take Stephen King and you take his fear of cosmic horror and you tie it into his own personal struggles with substance abuse? That's when you get The Shining. Influences are great. They are an essential part of the writing process. Do not be afraid of them. But be selective about what you take away from your influences. Make sure that you're learning how to be a better writer, not how to be the same writer as the person who is influencing you. That's not going to happen. But you can take that feeling that they give you and the techniques they use to give you that feeling and implement it in your own writing. So, speaking of influences, let's talk about this month's featured creator. We're actually going to have a summer rewind this month. I wound up getting COVID late this summer, and so a lot of things got away from me. One of the ones that I felt the most bad about was that I just did not get to promote some of these brilliant creators anywhere near as much as I had planned or liked to. So I'm going to give them a do-over, and I think that's perfect because it means that I get to start fresh with horror writers come October, and I'll probably give another horror writer in November because it's my show and I can do what I want. So, our featured creators from all of the summer are coming back. For those of you who don't remember, that's Tokyo Momo, that's Brandy Alexander, and that's C. Chant. For those of you who need a catch-up, Tokyo Momo is a wonderful artist. He won our Father's Day contest with his wonderfully drawn portrait of Asgore, his favorite fictional dad from one of his shows. So, he was influenced by his favorite show and by the idea of fatherhood to make art. Brandy Alexander wrote the book Genesis, and that's a great example of the power of influences. You can really feel how much she was inspired by Frank Peretti there, but because she brings her own worldview into it, as well as a lot more fascination with the idea of ghosts, she was able to tell a completely original tale. Like, it's not like I'm saying Brandy Alexander, she's just a cheap knockoff of Frank Peretti. No, this tale is completely different, but you can feel the influences. It's very clear she was inspired, and that's great. C. Chant is an artist who's heavily involved by and influenced by and involved in ADHD people. I can't talk when I have the script right in front of me. C. Chant is an artist who's heavily influenced by and involved in webtoons. Their art kind of reminds me of the style of Laura Olympus and those kind of things. Now, C. Chant's recently undergone a personal tragedy and are currently not accepting orders. But if you just want to pop on their page, give them a like, give them a follow, and show them some love, that'd be great. Just, let them know we appreciate them and are thinking about them as they take their time to heal. As always, all support for our creators comes with deals and discounts on any of my content writing services. You support them, and I will support you. I'll support you anyway, but I'll support you for cheaper. If you're interested, just leave a comment with a good contact email wherever you're watching this video. As always, I'm going to keep writing. You spend more time doing what you love.